What's up, it's Jan back at it again with another nerdy bookish video. This is gonna be my December wrap up. Got a new setup because I wanted to sit on my new couch that I got last month and just be all cozy. I'm in a hoodie. It's a good time. Got my handy dandy Stitch mug. Y'all know what that means. I'm gonna be continuing my reread, rewrite, burn format of these wrap-ups. It is now 2 years since I started doing them this way, and I never looked back, like I always say, because it's more fun this way. I just love doing my wrap-ups this way, and I haven't seen anyone else do it this way when I started doing them, so I'm really happy that I have this little original thing on my channel. But yeah, I always use this Stitch mug, and I put all the books that I read on little slips of paper, and then I shuffle them up, pull them out 3 at a time, and it's basically fuck, marry, kill, but make it bookish. So if you're new here, that's the gist. I also start every wrap up with my monthly recap. Let's just go through it really quickly. December was a really good reading month. I got 25 books in. Any month that I surpass 20 books is just so accomplishing. I get that solid accomplished feeling, like I did that, you know? I did calculate the number of pages because, again, if you're new here, I do keep track of the physical pages that I read every day. I do read audiobooks every now and then, but just like the calculating of the percentage of the book and everything, it's just too much for a daily page count. I do still count them as books because, you know, as you should, because audiobooks are still books. 5,325 pages read. Number of BIPOC authors. Out of the 25, I only read 9, which is not something I'm proud of, so we'll do better. Best book. Oh, I forgot to grab these books. Pause. All right, I think I grabbed all the books. My best book of December. It was really hard. It was tied between 2, but I chose All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I adore this book. So it took me like a year to finally pick this book back up after I started it. I knew I was gonna like it when every time I thought about picking it up, I was still like, I remember everything that happened in the first 80 pages that I read last year. So I'm like, okay, that's promising. I just kept putting it off because of the size of it. It's so much for a slow burn romance, and when I say slow burn, it is the slowest burn I've ever read in my life, because 320 pages in, the 2 main characters just held hands for the first time. But when I tell you that this had me screaming, swooning, screaming again, squealing, crying, throwing up. It was just so much good. There was so much good in it. The writing was really good. The setting is great. It's in Colorado, and it's about this 33-year-old woman who went through a big divorce, and she was dating this really famous musician, and she did a shit ton for this guy, and he was just like too arrogant, and so that ended. There were a lot of issues with that person. So she went back to her hometown after her mom dies, and she sought out to do all the things that she and her mom promised they would do, like this big hike at this kind of dangerous terrain hiking trail. She rents this garage apartment that was listed online, but it was listed by our main love interest's son. And then so when she gets there, the dad is like, what the fuck? Of course, eventually they fall for each other, but way later in the book. Like, the buildup is so good, and that's what made me swoon about the littlest things. His name's Tobias Rhodes. He literally like pulled out a chair for her at dinner, and I was in tears. Like, the bar was in hell for Mr. Rhodes. I get it. And he had kind of a savior complex because he is a single dad, and he has that drive to overprotect people, which is fine because she was into it, and like, it was really cute most of the time. It was also kind of convenient that he was always there when she got herself into trouble. But if you look past all that, it's a very cute romance. It's honestly perfect. There's so much that goes on. There are so many funny moments and just like ridiculous moments. This author really uses like nature and weaves it in the story to drive the plot and drive the romance, and it's just so good. And the steamy scenes were great, and all the characters are just adorable, and I will definitely be reading more Mariana Zapata. I bought From Lukov with Love as I was reading this, so that'll be my next Mariana Zapata for sure. Let me know in the comments down below if you think I would like any of the other ones. The worst book of the month was actually my book club pick pick for November, and the live show was in December, so I read it early in the month. Small Angels by Lauren Owen. This was on my most disappointing of 2022 as well. If you haven't seen that video already, I'll have it linked down below. And if you weren't aware of my book club yet, it's called the Full Moon Book Club. I run it by myself, and I have a guest host every single month, and our live shows are typically on the full moon of every month, hence the name. I have had to reschedule some shows just like a day or two before or after, but all those announcements are going to be on my personal Instagram, just at janagaton, always linked down below as well. I don't have a dedicated Instagram for the book club, but yeah, it's super fun. But this book was not. It was a really fun live show with Kitty from Spicy Cats Reads here on BookTube, but the whole experience of this, I did a spoiler-filled Patreon vlog, which I also have now because I started it late last year in September, and we're vampire themed. We're called The Lair. All that information is linked down below. It's a fun time over there too. We have a Discord, buddy read, 24-hour readathons, and yeah, my dedicated reading vlogs did shift from YouTube to Patreon, and they are now spoiler filled. So if you're interested in that, I would love to have you as a fellow vamp in The Lair. This book was pitched to me as a gothic horror, and yes, it has the slow, very slow gothic writing, and it did have a couple creepy moments. Basically, these friends go to this wedding, and it's in this small town where there are woods that like listen to your stories and whisper back and things like that. So I was ready for a creepy old time. It almost felt like that show, The Midnight Club. All the kids meet up late at night and tell stories to each other. That's what this book felt like. So if you're into that, you might love this. There were ghosts, but it was like I could count the number of creepy moments in here and the times that I was actually like entertained. And it was just a series of like storytelling of legends in this small town, and I don't think it was done well at all. The pacing was off. The characters were just so hard to like not only distinguish from each other, but like get to know. Like I feel like I don't know any of these characters besides the one couple that was getting married, because they actually had some notable quotes about their relationship, and there was also a sapphic relationship in this, and there were a bunch of sisters and this ghost. The most entertaining part of this book was when they explain how the town ghost actually died and like the background information of that. Other than that, I hated the whole experience of reading this. It dragged so much. I think it took me a full week to read this. I'm getting rid of it, so if you're interested in my annotated copy, it'll be listed on my Pango. Again, link down below. I think that'll be my last shameless plug. Books left on TBR, 13 out of 23. So I read 10 on my TBR. I was just like, fuck it at this point, you know? I was like, I'm just trying to finish books. I did not read a classic this month. I did participate in Buzzwordathon this month, and the buzzword was numbers. This is an annual reading challenge run by Kayla from Books and Lala. So I read this poetry book called For Everyone by Jason Reynolds, and it was the shortest audiobook I've ever listened to, but I just wanted to fulfill that buzzword goal, you know? It was so worth my time because Jason Reynolds narrates it, and his voice is just so powerful and inspiring, and that really makes his poems even more impactful than if I were to read it physically on my own. I did read Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, which I really liked as well, so I'll definitely be reading more by him. And this was basically just about following your heart, following your dreams, looking past all of those people who tell you otherwise and who try to drag you down. He's preaching to be fearless and just going for it anyway, despite being afraid. It was a good book to read in December in preparation for the new year. So I enjoyed that one. I gave that one 5 stars. I gave All Roads Lead Here 5 stars, and Small Angels, I think I gave 2 stars. I did read a book that was over 500 pages, which is a monthly goal, just like not as big of a goal. It's not a priority is what I'm saying, but All Roads Lead Here was over 500 pages, like 560 pages. I did read my last nonfiction of the year, which was Burnout by Emily Nagoski and Amelia Nagoski. They're sisters. I thought this was perfect for December because Vlogmas season, and after the whole year has gone, I've had many phases of burnout throughout 2022. I gave this one 4 stars. I was slightly disappointed because I thought it was gonna be, I guess, more helpful, more impactful. It was alright. I was tabbing the shit out of it. It had a lot of purposeful lines. It did make me, you know, reevaluate some things in my life. I think Atomic Habits helped me significantly more than this did in terms of like getting your shit together. Like I thought this would motivate me to rest more, but it really didn't. And like I know in my heart of hearts when I need to rest and say fuck it and put myself first, as Brie from Locked Booktition would say, who actually said that this is the reason that she went into her PhD program, so that's wild to me. But it was really good, and it talked a lot about like the psychological aspects of burnout and everything, and it did give really good anecdotes and examples, so I enjoyed it, and I'm glad I was able to fulfill my one nonfiction a month goal. That's it. Okay, let's go into the actual wrap up. So we have The Island by Adrienne McKenty, which I listened to on audio on Libby. Alone with You in the Ether by Olive Blake. These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Ryan. Hands down would reread These Twisted Bonds. So I read this for my Patreon 24-hour readathon, where I read 5 books in the full 24 hours. I actually stayed up successfully. I really wish that vlog went up on YouTube, but you know, it's just for the lair, and I had such a good time for my December readathon. I can't wait to do it again. Hands down would reread this. This is a sequel to These Hollow Vows, and this is one of my favorite YA fantasy duologies ever. Like I say every time I talk about these books, it is very tropey, it's very classic YA fantasy. There's a love triangle all throughout the entire duology, like nonstop. She has a journey and she goes to Fae. It's a Fae book. There are a bunch of betrayals. The romance in this one had me in a chokehold. Finn is my new fictional book boyfriend, which is so rare for me. Like, I don't do fictional crushes usually, like it just doesn't like hit me that way, but Finn hit me, and I just love how my tabs look in this. They're all aligned and everything. And this cover, one of my subscribers, Natalie, got this for me on release day for my birthday in July, and I started it like right away, and then I put it down until December. I don't know why it took me that long, but once I was in it, obviously I binged like almost 300 pages of this book during that 24-hour readathon. It's so freaking good, and I would reread this duology over and over because it just really transports you, and you get so invested in these characters and their romance and their feelings. At least I did. And I know my friend Hannah from Hannah's Recent Reads didn't really like the ending of this, but I loved it. This duology is perfect. At first I was like kind of embarrassed about the first one because I was like, wow, this is literally ACOTAR and Cruel Prince combined. And I was like, why do I love this so much? But this just solidified my decision, and this was actually on my top 10 of 2022. It knocked off These Hollow Vows for me, and I'm usually a first book kind of gal. Like, I usually prefer the first book over the rest of the series, but this is an exception to that, and I'll have my top 10 of 2022 linked down below. I would rewrite Alone with You in the Ether, just take out all the steamy scenes. The steamy scenes were awful, everything else was great. I also feel like I never really got to know the characters. Well, you did, like, you get the persona, what are those called? It's called a persona, right? When you like the profile of these people. Like, Aldo is very intelligent and awkward and quirky and everything and nerdy, and then you have, what the fuck's her name? What the fuck is her name? Reagan, who is, in my vlog I called her the adult version of Alaska Young, so I also warned you guys that if you hated Alaska Young and Looking for Alaska, you will hate Reagan. But I personally love her recklessness and impulsivity, her outlook on life, because I did see myself in some of that, just as I did with Alaska Young, and the way she copes with things. So this book did really hit me. I gave this one 4 stars, but those sex scenes really knocked off that star really quickly. Olive Blake needs to stick to fantasy. Like, I loved her writing in the Atlas 6. Her writing is really dense too, but you can tell she's a very, very intelligent author, and she did do her research for this book about like bees and all these random scientific facts, but I could not get past the sex scenes. I will link that vlog down below. It's actually uploading as we speak, but you'll see me read some quotes from said sex scenes. And then what was the third one? The Island. See, I would reread this physically, but here I have to burn it, which is fine because it was an audiobook and it's a thriller, so I already know what happens and it's not as exciting to read a thriller the second time. There are a couple exceptions that I could see myself still loving, but the audiobook for this was surprisingly really fucking good. This was on my most surprising of 2022. Which will be linked down below. I guess that wasn't my last shameless plug when I said it would be. This is the author of The Chain, which I gave 5 stars to. The Island I also gave 5 stars to. The audiobook was so well done. It had gunshots and wind blowing. The narrator's accents were really good, and it was so riveting. Like, I would listen to this on my drive and I'd grip the steering wheel harder. Like, I physically reacted to this book, and it was just so gripping. It's about this family who gets held hostage on this Australian island because of this accident. The reveals I think were done well. The plot twists were all right. They weren't too shocking, but there were a lot of gruesome scenes. Gruesome, is that the right word? I don't even know. It kept my attention the entire time, so love that one. The next 3 we have Monster Volume. I always do that with manga. Monster Volume 8, which is a thriller manga that I read the entire series of in 2022. We have For Everyone, which I already talked about. And then, oh gosh, Monster Volume 7. I hate when I read similar books in the same month because I can't distinguish them, especially in a series like this. I'll say I'll reread For Everyone because it's a poetry book and it was inspiring, like I said. Don't remember which one I liked better. Let me see. Sorry, my toilet's making noise as always in every video I ever make. Volume 7 I gave 4 stars and 8 I gave 3 stars. So I guess I'll burn 8. I honestly really didn't like the conclusion of this book, so that would make sense. Volume 7 I gave 4 stars. I have to flip through a little. Okay, so this one was the one that had a lot of flashbacks. I mean, they all do, but yeah, I like the storyline of this one with this guy that our main character crosses paths with. It's really hard to discuss a 7th book in the series, but essentially there's this doctor, this Japanese doctor. We're set in Germany and he's accused of murder several times, and then there's this situation with these twins. They go missing. One of them is just like wreaking havoc across the country basically, and yeah, so it just like takes that storyline and expands it and expands it, and there are so many characters throughout this whole series. I love the series as a whole. The first one really grabs your attention and makes you want to keep reading, and I would reread this entire series eventually. I don't know how I would rewrite this one. It's hard to rewrite a manga, like what the fuck? Can y'all just trust me on this one? Because I can't think of anything. The next 3, oh god, we have Small Angels, Krampus by Brahm, and then Laura-Lea Volume 3. Would reread Laura-Lea Volume 3. I actually bought the first 3, the ones that are out now. The 4th one is coming, I think, this year, maybe, hopefully. I just bought all 3 of them in hardcover because they were pretty cheap on Amazon, and one of my subscribers, Tara, told me to just snatch them, and I was like, hell yeah. I also read this for that 24-hour readathon. I just love this series so much. This is a graphic novel series, and the art style is just impeccable, and the humor in these books, I can't get enough. I will reread this series over and over, and there are some heavier topics like rape and abuse and things like that, so do beware of that, but otherwise it's a lighthearted time. There's a romance between Hades and Persephone. It follows a lot of like Greek gods. All their personalities are so fun to read, and the dialogue is just, well, it's all dialogue, but it's so like moving. Like the art style really drives this home, and it's a very self-aware type of book. This has little life tidbits too thrown throughout the entire series, so would reread this and would highly recommend if you're looking for a graphic novel series to read. Would burn Small Angels, burn it to hell, burn it several times. Krampus I would rewrite as a novella because that is what I said in my vlog reading this, the one that's uploading right now. I just think it was too long for what it was. I did really like Krampus as a character because you understand him more. Joey was like, he's just misunderstood, and that's exactly what it was. He shares a lot of insight on like following your dreams and doing what you really want to do, so that was actually surprisingly inspiring. It's a goofy old time, you know, with his 2 goats as his reindeer and Santa's sack, and this guy Jesse who's just trying to thrive, and this other guy's trying to kill him, and then they cross paths with these devil people and Krampus, and I think it would have been a lot more enjoyable as a novella. Wow, that actually worked out really well. Usually I struggle. All right, we have Kingdom of the Curse by Carrie Maniscalco. I'm losing my voice. Monster Volume 9, and then I gotta pick one more. The Mistletoe Motive by Chloe Leese. What was the first book? I forgot. Oh, Kingdom of the Cursed. Okay, let's see. Oh, Lord. I would reread The Mistletoe Motive. It's short, it's a novella, it's a Christmas romance. Maybe I'll read it every holiday season, who knows. And I love Chloe Leese. She has just such good representation and diversity with her characters with like neurodivergence and chronic illness and mental health and things like that. I enjoyed this one. It's pitched as You've Got Mail meets The Hating Game, which is a very accurate description of this book. These 2 people work at the same bookstore though. They are trying to save this bookstore, and one of them might have to, whatever. One of them has to possibly, let me start over. One of them has to possibly leave the bookstore in order to save it because of, you know, budget and things like that. And so it's like a hate to love type of thing. And the steamy scenes were good. I also read this during my 24-hour readathon, and I think it was a great one. It was super quick, funny, and bookish. Loved it. I would rewrite Kingdom of the Cursed. That plot twist or cliffhanger or whatever that people were talking about, it wasn't as intense as I expected, as people hyped up for me. This was dragging. I took months to read this as well. I'm still gonna read the finale. of the trilogy, despite me giving this one 3 stars. Gave The Mistletoe Motive 4 stars. I can't explain why I gave it 4 stars. I think I was just like very sleep deprived at that point because this was my second to last book and I was reading it like way past midnight and everything. But I did really enjoy it. It just dragged a little bit at some parts, I think. And then this one, 3 stars. It dragged in the beginning, and then there was this one scene where someone got stabbed, you know. And from then on I was hooked, and I was so excited to get to the end to like see this cliffhanger. Since I do have the 3rd book, I was like, am I gonna want to immediately pick that one up? No, I don't know when I want to pick that one up. I'm not excited to read it at all at this point, but I do love Kerry Maniscalco's writing. This has a lot of steam in it between the demon princes and this main character. What the fuck's her name? Amelia. It was just underwhelming, and I heard the 3rd one's even worse, so yeah, not excited. But I really loved the first one if you're interested in Kingdom of the Wicked. And then I would burn volume 9. This might also be partly my sleep deprivation because this was the last book I read until 8 a.m. that night for my 24-hour readathon, and I really hated the finale of the series, and it sucks because it was a 9-book series. You know, I follow these characters for a long time. The ending just wasn't what I wanted. I really wanted it to be a paranormal thing, but it wasn't. Paranormal, supernatural, something like that, but it wasn't. And I was just highly disappointed. I honestly couldn't even tell you anything about this one besides my disappointment. Look at the tabs. I have like 5 tabs in here. 7 tabs. LOL, which is so rare for me, especially for this thick of a book. Like I said, overall it was a good time, and I would reread this series regardless. But I would burn the hell out of that volume. I don't think it was necessary, to be honest. 8 was enough. Next 3. Dead Voices by Kathryn Arden, which I read via audio on Libby. It's a middle grade. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This is my reread, my first reread of this book, and y'all know that like, a lot of people associate that book with me. And then we had Hex by Jenny Fagan. Obviously, would reread this, hands down. Y'all already know. I don't need to go into it. I don't know why my reread took me over a year to finish. I knew I was gonna annotate this heavily, and I wanted to always just be like fully present when I was reading this, so I think that's why I kept putting it off. I was waiting for like the perfect moment to read it, and I guess the perfect moment was the end of the year, so I didn't have to bring it to 2023. But yeah, I still loved it. Obviously 5 stars. Would reread again. I would rewrite Hex. I think just pull out some of the more religious parts. I know it's a super short book, so like what are you omitting at this point? But like, yes, it's witchy, and a lot of witchy books, you know, talk about religion, which makes sense, but I think there were some parts that were just unnecessarily too religious. I think those conversations didn't really have to happen, especially at those moments. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars because it really drove home the idea of feminism and how women were mistreated, you know, considered witches for this and that. And it's a very quick read. Obviously, look how small it is. It's like 101 pages. Joey got me this book for Christmas, and I was really intrigued by it when my friends from the UK, Kat from Bambina Katerina and Jodie from Vanilla Moon, were reading this and really enjoyed it, because I think this was published in the UK, so it's like kind of hard to find over here. I'm glad I finally got to it, and I'm glad I enjoyed it. The writing is very poetic. There are a lot of heavy parts in this as well, about like rape and abuse and, you know, the mistreatment of women, misogyny, all those things. I would recommend it, but just beware of the trigger warnings. And then I would burn Dead Voices by Kathryn Arden. I didn't like this one as much as Small Spaces. I don't remember what the series name is called, but it's a middle grade spooky series. I really liked Small Spaces, like I said, and I liked this one too. The audiobooks are pretty good. This one was set in the winter. It's about this like spooky, was it a cabin? I don't remember what they stayed at, but it was this little girl and her family and a couple friends, and there were a few creepy scenes that made me like, you know, while I was driving. Like there were mirror scenes, there were creepy like ghost scenes, and I enjoyed it, but out of the 3 books that I had in this chunk, I would burn this one. All right, next 3. We have, that's weird, I was just like, oh, I haven't done Burnout yet. We have Burnout, Blackmail and Bibinka, which was an audiobook, a cozy mystery audiobook. It's the 3rd in the Arsenic and Adobo series. No, I think it's called Tita Rosie's Kitchen, cozy mystery series. And then The Visitor by Sergio Gomez. Would burn The Visitor, hands down. I read this for my Unmuted and Unhinged reading sprints with Joey, where we read extreme horror novellas and stay unmuted, so y'all hear our live reactions on these sprints with like ambiance and things. It's a really fun time, but it's Patreon only, so that's one of the perks for all the tiers. And this one was our December pick. obviously this is my December wrap up, oh my god. And it's like 80 something pages, and it's a Christmas horror novella, and it involved an alien coming down and just like crashing this friend group's Christmas. And when I chose this book, I don't know what made me not think it was about an alien, because of the cover it clearly looks like an alien. It had a couple gruesome scenes. There were a couple intense scenes, yes, but at the end of the day, I think I gave it 1 star. Yeah, I gave it 1 star. I really didn't enjoy it. It was boring. I was just like, what the yeah, no. What were the other two? Oh, I would reread Burnout. I feel like I could learn something new every time I read this one, so there's that. And then rewrite Blackmail and Bibinka. I say I would rewrite this to make it more like the second book, which is my favorite in the series right now. I'm glad I continued despite giving Arsenic and Adobo 3 stars, which was my book club pick last June, last June, I guess, in 2021. I really like the second one. It had a deeper, like more substantial plot, or at least like a subplot, because the main plot was like a pageant. But this one didn't have that. This one was mainly the mystery, and there were some familial issues, like family drama with this estranged, was it a cousin, and how the aunt was getting blackmailed and things. It was entertaining. It was a fun audiobook. The audiobooks are really good for this one because this narrator nails the Filipino accent, and you know, I'm 100% Filipino, so I could relate to a lot of the things that she talks about with like the family and everything. I guess it made a difference because the second book was written during the pandemic, according to the author's note, and this one, she talks about how she was in a much better headspace and everything, and it does translate to the fictional plot of this book. So yeah, I would rewrite it in that sense to make it, I mean, it's a cozy mystery, so you can't really expect, you know, too deep of a plot, but at the same time, Homicide and Halo Halo did the damn thing. But this one kind of fell short for me, but it was still cute. It was still a fun time. I gave it 3 stars. Moving on. We have If You're Stabby. I don't know the author's name. It was a picture book recommended to me by a coworker, and I absolutely loved it. We have Tender as the Flesh. I don't remember the author. And then Monstrous Volume 7, which is a graphic novel that I read on Hoopla. All right, so I would burn Tender as the Flesh. Gave that one 2 stars. I liked the concept a lot. I'll link my vlog down below reading this book, because I think it is in my, is it in my cramming? I don't remember if it's in my cramming vlog. Oh my god, it is. I read 6 books. I gotta change the thumbnail. Oh my god, I just had a whole epiphany. But oh my god, I totally forgot I read that in that book. I just blacked it out because the concept is really, really good, okay? Animal meat has become poisonous, so people had to resort to cannibalism. It's a cool concept for a horror book, right? And I think it's translated really well. It's a translated work. The thing about this is that it followed this guy's life more than expanding on this society and how they act and like their lifestyle and stuff. It followed on this main character's life and his personal traumas and tragedies, and it was just not what I expected from this book. And then there were these random scenes that made no sense. Like there was this animal cruelty scene where these teenagers were just randomly having a profound conversation about the government while they were abusing puppies, and I was just like, what is the point of this? There was a good like revenge plot line to it, which I really liked, that involved the main guy's sister. But other than that, I was just glad it was a quick read, and it took me like a day to finish. So that's that. If You're Stabby and Monstrous Volume 7, very picture heavy books. I would reread If You're Stabby. It's so cute. It's just a picture book with this goth unicorn who just like hates the world, and it's just so funny, and I just want to like observe every detail of these pictures throughout this book. Would reread that. Would rewrite Monstrous Volume 7. I don't even know how. I say this for a lot of these volumes. There are these like intermissions with these cat having a conversation, and it just like takes me away from the story. If you've read this, you know what I'm talking about. It's like in between chapters usually, and I would just take those out because it is distracting. I know it has like some sort of like world building or whatever within those conversations, but at the same time, I'm lost anyway in this world, and I'm just here for a good time in the art style because it's phenomenal. The art is unmatched in Monstrous, and this is Volume 7, so I've been following these characters again for a while. It's just so beautiful. Like, the art style is gorgeous. You really get sucked into this world because they're so intricate. There's so many details in these pictures, and it's a masterpiece. The next three, we have Demon in the Wood by Leigh Bardugo, and I forgot the illustrator's name, I'm sorry. That's a graphic novel. Only When It's Us by Chloe Leese, which was an audiobook from the library. And then All Roads Lead Here. Obviously rereading All Roads Lead Here. Already talked your ear off with that one. I would rewrite Only When It's Us. I don't know how. Maybe take out the soccer element of it, because that I didn't really care for. This was my second Chloe Leese book after The Mistletoe Motive, and it was via audio, and I fell in love with it instantly because female character is very like myself, with like have to do this, have to do that, like always stressed out type of thing, because she is a student as well as a professional athlete. Was she a professional athlete? I don't remember if she was professional or whatever. She played soccer a lot. The guy was deaf, so it has that rep in it. And then there's also death of a parent in this, so careful with that if that's a trigger for you. But I think the story was so well done. The steamy scenes are, yes to the steamy scenes. And it was just such a wholesome romance. The guy's name is Ryder and the woman's name is Willa. He really handles her like mental health really well. He gives her the space she needs when she needs it. He knew what to do. He knew what to say. He knew how to act. And it was just refreshing to read a romance like that, especially with deaf representation and a woman who feels like she has to be doing something and accomplishing things, fulfilling this like perfection standard. I always like reading about that because I see that in myself every damn day. And then I have one more, which is my wild card. City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. I think I'd burn it. I wouldn't reread it, that's for sure. This is the second book to the Mortal Instruments series, and I'm finally hopping on that train and trying the Cassandra Clare books out because of Chain of Thorns being absolutely gorgeous. I know you don't have to start from the very beginning to understand the Chain of Gold, Chain of Iron. Last Hours series, I have Chain of Gold right there. Joey bought me the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, even though I'm nowhere near getting to that book yet. But yeah, I know you don't have to read from the very beginning to understand these books, but I need to. So right now, currently I'm reading City of Glass, but last month I read City of Ashes and I actually really enjoyed it. Like, I surprisingly really enjoyed the audiobook and its humor and the characters and how they interacted with each other and the dialogue and everything. And then the character Valentine, when he would, you know, stir the pot. But I wouldn't reread it, and it's not worth thinking of a way to rewrite it for me. But like, what's done is done. It's there. I would just burn it because I'm moving on with the series. Those are all 25 books I read in December. Sorry if this video was extremely long. If you made it to the end of this video, put like a nature emoji. You know those emojis that have like scenic things in them? Yeah, put a road. I don't care. Put a like the one with all the pine trees, the sunset, whatever you want, one of those nature emojis in the comments down below if you made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching. Hope y'all had a great day. Stay safe, stay positive, and stay spooky always, and I'll see y'all in my next video. Bye.